This place is called Cauldron, Linn, and it's where I wanted to do my shot with Kathleen, for Kathleen, because we've been through the boiling pot. Here we are. Hi, I'm Craig, Kathleen's husband. For what, 36 years now, I guess. And if you see me suddenly look into the side or something, I'm looking for rattlesnakes out here in the rocks. Just a little bit brief history of me. I grew up with grandparents on both sides professing. One on the east side of Binford and the other on the west side of Binford, a mile apart. My mom's folks and my dad's folks. It's interesting. One of the things I was just thinking about was I was probably 8 years old riding with one of the older workers, sister workers, over to my dad's aunt, and she's trying to make conversation, and she said, "Now there's 5 boys in your family, isn't there?" I said, "Yep." She said, "Boy, they're out of the workers should get a couple of brother workers out of that bunch." And I'm like, whoop, eek, screech. A little later on, I was like, here I am. We couldn't play basketball. And I'm like, what's going on? The workers every winter would have meetings Tuesday nights and Friday nights and Sunday afternoons. And the whole community was at basketball games then, so I could never figure that out. It's like, you're not going to get any outsiders then to gospel meetings. So it was like, we couldn't play then because we had gospel meetings on Tuesday and Fridays and Sundays. College, got a job, got in a motorcycle wreck. So got a new motorcycle, I did. And I was riding to work and going home for lunch and wasn't wearing a helmet. And here this lady pulled in front of me, I guess. I don't remember. Anyway, I was unconscious for, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 weeks. When I came to, the doctor's like, well, there's nothing we can do. Well, anyway, at the beginning of the accident, my mom had, it was a new bike, so there was no registration. They didn't know who I was. I didn't have my billfold on me. Finally got a hold of my mom, and they said, well, he's in a coma. He's probably got him on life support. And by the time Mom and Dad got to the hospital, about 60 miles away, they said, well, he's breathing on his own now, but he'll be a vegetable probably all his life. And then I came to then after 3 or 4 weeks, and they said, well, you may as well just take him back home on the farm. Went back home on the farm, and that's where my dad was so incredible. He just started treating me like I was a normal human being, I'd go out to the field and work in the morning, and he'd come get me for lunch, and I'd say, now what are we going to do, Dad? He said, well, you're going to go do what you did. Finish that field you were working on this morning. I said, where was that? So it was like, and I pretty much lost a year of my life, memory-wise, but here I am. My accident, it was, I kind of went right, wasn't wearing a helmet, so went right through the side of the van, caught the window here, and flayed my face off. Popped my eyeballs out, just the one eyeball out, and wouldn't you know it, God's provision, there was a nurse right there at the intersection waiting to cross the street. And so she immediately then got the bleeding stopped and got it cleaned while the ambulance was coming, and put my eyeball back in, and then they hauled me off to the hospital. I often wondered, it's like, when I was thinking about it afterwards, I'm like, were they praying for me, or were they just, well, you're in our thoughts, Craig? After I came to, I went to Phoenix, Arizona, and I got my heavy equipment operating schooling, and while I was waiting for a job there in Phoenix, I thought, I'm going to go out to my cousins out in San Jose and visit them for a little bit. out there and went to gospel meeting with him on Sunday, and here there was a gentleman there that knew I was a North Dakota farm boy, and he said, "Wow, I'm looking for help. Can you start work with me Monday morning?" And I said, "Sure, I'll be there." Well, it was in cement work, paving, runways, and all that other stuff for the Air Force bases, Navy bases, all that other stuff. And I had a fifth wheel trailer that was my traveling suitcase, and I really, really, really lived a rough life. Gambling, professing man that got me started, his son is the one that took me to my first brothel. It's so sad how, when you think of that stuff, I remember back when it was like, oh no, I didn't do something, am I going to go to hell? I mean, as a child, I didn't bow my head, and I peeked during prayer. Am I going to go to hell? Or, it was just all sorts of different things would come up. And then it's like, then all of a sudden, you start your gambling and the brothels and all that lifestyle. It never once crossed my mind, but yet, and alcohol. I never wasn't into the heavy alcohol, just a lot of beer, drank a lot. And it was just, the most important thing was, I'm up till 3 in the morning, but I'll wash my mouth and go to Sunday morning meeting. That was the important thing to me. I started working all over Southern California, Southern Nevada, all through mid California, all through doing, and even up into Oregon, Washington, all over doing cement work, pulling my traveling suitcase. And that's where I met Kathleen when I was working in the Bay Area. And it was kind of funny. I had a big long beard, and she would sit there and comb my beard, and never once did she show an interest in start a relationship with me. So it was like, oh well. So I go back to work again, and I guess it was about 4.5 years later. I was working in Reno, Nevada, and on an airport job, and Kathleen called me, and she said, "Hey Greg, my sister is meeting her boyfriend up in Lake Tahoe this next weekend, and Mom's coming with. Oh, you want to come up there and meet us?" I said, "Yeah, for sure." Well, it was pretty interesting because that's when we fell in love. It was scary because at least I had the nerve to call her, because then she says, "Oh, am I glad you called, because I would never, because all of a sudden now I liked you. There was no way I'm going to call you now that I like you." It was in the fall. Kathleen got pregnant. Okay, for sure I'm going to marry you. Let's go to Reno right now and get married. And she said, "No, I'm going to do this right." So then my youngest brother then was getting married in December. So we said, okay, so we'll set it up in January then. Went back to North Dakota. And that was right after our wedding. Went back to North Dakota and we were going to have a wedding reception. But my folks found out that Kathleen was pregnant. And so that got canceled because we told her. We weren't hiding nothing. We said, "Kathleen's pregnant." And they were like, "Ooh, okay." So I worked in California. Where you were living. We lived there in Grandma's house until the earthquake. And that scared me to death. I had been in tornadoes and everything else, but earthquakes, no way. I got home after we were working in a quarry, and after we were all accounted for, I started for home. And here the freeway right above our house had landslided, covered it up. So the traffic was all backed up and stopped. Well, I asked, where's it? How far can I get up? And they said, well, you can get to the cutoff. And I said, all right, that's all I need. And I didn't care what. Here I'm going. And I just drove right down the median of the freeway. And the cop must have obviously knew that I knew what I was doing. Got home, and everything in that house that could break was broken. Kathleen was out in the yard with the baby, Tessa, and decided right then and there, I can't live here. Scared of dying. I was scared of dying. We packed up and moved to Colorado, where I went to college, airplane mechanic license. Got done at that, got hired on by Delta Airlines in Atlanta, Georgia. And I flew down there for the meeting and all. I showed up for my meeting, and they said, Craig, sorry. They just put a hiring freeze on last Friday before you were hired. So we can't use you. So then moved back to North Dakota. And I was working as an auto mechanic, auto shop there, and got an offer to work for the county as a road grader operator. So I started working as a road grader operator, and right then is when Kathleen and my friend Debbie were going through the Bible from the beginning to the end, just researching something besides the King James Version. So they were just tearing it apart, just wanting to know. And so I must have talked to my boss a little bit something. He was a believer from the little town there. And he said, Craig, here. And he gave me a New Testament NIV Bible. I was running the road grader, so it was real quiet in my cabin. I had my NIV right there by my side. And I would be thinking, mulling over what Kathleen and Debbie were talking about. They would bring up subjects. I'd stop right in the middle of the road and I'd dig through the Bible and think, wow, that's what it says. Then my boss came to me and he said, Greg, there's a group of us guys that are going to Prom Steepers. I said, oh, I've never heard of that. He said, well, it's all different churches of all denominations get together, and they're expecting over 60,000 people to get men, 60,000 plus men gathering in the Metrodome in Minneapolis. I answered Wayne and I said, wow, that sounds interesting. I would really like to go. I'd love to go with you guys. And so we got in the van. I think there was 6 of us got in the van, and we were all excited. I didn't have a clue what I was going to get into. And we got there on a Friday afternoon and checked in. I think the first thing was at 7 o'clock that night, and 60,000 men singing, worshiping, tears, joy, just excitement, all about God, Jesus. I'm like, wow, this can't be. There was like a call to repentance, and there was men coming from the nosebleed section, like they would say, and they were coming down, and out in the aisle around the main, in between the floors, there was men weeping, laying just bowed on their knees, praying, worshiping, praying to God. And it was just like, I couldn't, I wept, because obviously God was with me. God was there in leading me there. So it was like I'd never experienced something like this here, little town of Lutherans in my little town, Catholic, a little group of Catholics, you know, and being taught that no, they're not saved, they don't follow the rules, and so I never experienced anything like that, and it was just, and then we got up Saturday, and the songs, the worship, the songs, unbelievable. I can't think of any right offhand right now. Yeah, be thou my vision. You know, it was like, and Lord, how can this be? 60,000+ men from just this area. Not, I bet you I was the only professing man there. And it's like, Lord, I know these men are saved. There wasn't a doubt in my mind. These men were saved. So, got back home then to Kathleen, and I was excited. So, I got back home, and Mom and Dad had asked me where I'd been, and I said, well, I went with my boss to Promise Keepers. All denominations got together there, and she looked me in the eye and she said, you don't think your father keeps his promises? And I'm kind of slow when it comes to reactions, because if I'm to react right away, I'm saying things I wish I hadn't said. And so it troubled me. All of a sudden, I'm about 8 miles out in the country, and I called my boss on the radio. I said, Wayne, I need to talk to you. And he said, I'll be right there, Craig. And I said, Wayne, I can't take the pressure of this, living amongst my family. I said, I was to a store in Jamestown, and one of my cousins saw me in the aisle and took off and running and went around the corner and wouldn't even dare meet me eye to eye. And my dad would stop and give me stories of you know, what he was trying to imply is like, Craig, it's okay if Kathleen comes in jeans and has her lipstick and her earrings, because that's obviously important to her, that's the important thing she needs. But Craig, even if you can't take part, you have to come to meeting. You can never not come to meeting. That's the important thing. At Promise Keepers, the experience, it was like I experienced being born again. So people will ask me, well, when were you saved? I said, well, I was saved at Promise Keepers 1996 in Minneapolis, Minnesota with my boss. And I knew I could not return and go back to Sunday morning meetings. And the sad part of it is I was never asked. I was asked by one of my cousin's husband, Craig, what have you done? And I said, I explained it all, and he said, well, Craig, do you know you're saved? And I said, I do. And he said, well, that's the only what else can I say? And I said, and that's the only person that asked out of brothers, cousins, relatives, anybody. Not one person ever asked me, what's up? Or even wanted to have a conversation with me, with us. It was sad. No conversation, no questions. And I couldn't go to them saying, aren't you curious? I mean, I wish I would have. It was sad because I knew my mom had a brother that didn't profess, and my dad had a sister that was married that didn't profess. And now I knew because when they would visit, then you could see the taillights in the driveway, and you would hear they would be talking about why can't they see the light, and so I knew wow, now I know what my mom's brother and my dad's sister and her husband were put through. My dad's sister was a very, very strong believer, but they were both so strong. And I remember Carol's husband would try to have a conversation about what is it you guys are preaching? What is it you guys are teaching? Why can't we be accepted? And there was never an answer. They would just, well, we better get going now. We got to get back to the field or whatever. Hank would try to explain scripture, different parts of questioning how do you believe what you're believing in, and it was totally shunned. It was sad. I remember once I was sitting in a bar in Reno, just back in the corner listening to the music, and all of a sudden it was just like I just said, Lord, I don't understand, Lord. I just, I've got questions, I've got feelings. I just can't see this as being the only right way. How? And I said, Lord, take me as I am, Lord. I will be a janitor in heaven for you, Lord. Just take me. Let me know what I'm to do, who I'm to be. And I remember there was a song by Styx, Tommy Shaw, that it was like my testimony. It was called "Fooling Yourself." I guess to remember the words, I'll have to try to sing it like. But why must you be such an angry young man when your future looks quite bright to me? How can there be such a sinister plan that could hide such a lamb, such a caring young man? And you're fooling yourself, don't believe it. You're killing yourself, you don't believe it. Get up, get back on your feet. You're the one they can't beat, and you know it. And that song, to this day, I think of that song. And what is so fun is my daughters, when the first thing we get there and she'll want to go to town, she'll say, Dad, let's go to town, get some groceries. I gotta get some groceries. And she'll have that song on, and she'll sing it with me. She just had a tattoo. It means as much to her as it does to me. I've held on to that song like a lifeline. It's through the thick and the thin. That song will come back when I feel troubled. Kathleen and I, we've said through our marriage, if there wasn't for bad luck, we wouldn't have any luck at all. And we laugh through it all. But you know what? Kathleen and I have vowed to each other, it's God first, and then it's because we've shed a lot of tears. I've hurt her before, and she's forgiven me. I'm thankful for that, because we've got each other, and we've got our two girls and their husbands and our two grandsons, and here we are, Lord, here we are. It's a good life, Lord. It's a good life. I just think I've grown up in North Dakota, Norwegian, farm boy, get out on the tractor, can't associate with nobody, you just do your job. You know, Mom's got an awesome meal for you when you get home for lunch and dinner and supper. But through it all, to where I'm at now, Kathy tries to tell me I'm not as shy, but yeah. But how I've grown to put my trust Lord, here I am. What? Here I am, Lord. I know my favorite song, now I won't be able to think of the words, but it's In Christ Alone. I've got it on my cell phone where I can push it and listen to it, along with a lot of others. Now some of you are going to say, Kathleen's back behind there bullying you into doing this. She didn't. I'm the one. I'm sitting out here on the rock, and wow, it was some rugged rock. There's a nice deep stream back in there. But here we are. I thought, she's asked me before, Greg, do you want to tell your life, your story to where we're at now? And I said, let's get her done. Dad, it almost came across as a threat, as in what you're giving up. You're not going to have any friends. You're not going to have any kind of life. How gloomy and dark. It's going to be a sad life. And he said, Craig, only sick sheep will leave the fold. We've got friends all over. Like, I can literally say all over the world. It's incredible. The people we met the last couple of winters, we spent with friends in Texas, and then this last winter we were in Tucson.